Good morning to everyone at today's public hearing of the Vetting Commission established under Law Number 65 on the external evaluation of judges and candidates for judges of the Supreme Court of Justice. I'm Scott Bales, the chair of the commission, and I declare this session open. The hearing is being conducted under the commission's rules of organization and functioning as part of the evaluation process. The subject of today's hearing is Dorin Munteanu, candidate for the position of judge on the Supreme Court of Justice. The evaluation in relation to Judge Munteanu was carried out under Law Number 65 on the external evaluation of judges and candidates for judges of the Supreme Court of Justice. Judge Munteanu is a judge at the Court of First Instance in Chisinau. Judge Munteanu, welcome.
Bună ziua.
Good morning.
I'm joined by four other commission members. To my left or your right is Vice Chair Andre Bevel. To my right is Commission Member Lillian Ansu. And further to my left are Commission Members Lavley Perling and Yuri Gatskin. The Commission is also assisted by members of its Secretariat, and you may notice in the room that there are some representatives of the public or the media. The photographer will take photographs just briefly at the beginning of the hearing. The hearing will be conducted with interpretation between Romanian and English. To allow for accurate interpretation, I ask everyone to speak clearly and slowly. Only one person should speak at a time. The proceedings are being recorded. The recordings of the Commission's public hearings generally are available online at the Commission's website, www.vettingmd.eu, within 3 days after the hearing. During the hearing, one or more members of the Commission may ask you questions. You should answer truthfully and completely, as your explanations are important to the Commission in verifying your financial and ethical integrity. At the end of the hearing, you will be given an opportunity to make a brief statement. In posing questions, we will consider your privacy and, where required and possible, the privacy of your family members and close persons. We will leave out unnecessary details related to such things as ID numbers, bank account numbers, specific addresses. For the protection of privacy, we ask you to do the same. I will start by briefly reviewing the evaluation process for Judge Munteanu. The Commission initiated its evaluation on August 24th, 2023, by notifying the judge by email and asking him to complete and return an ethics questionnaire and the financial declarations required by Law Number 65. Judge Munteanu returned the completed declarations and questionnaire on September 1st, 2023. As part of evaluating a subject's ethical and financial integrity, the Commission also obtains information from many other sources, such as the National Integrity Authority, the State Fiscal Service, the General Inspector of the Border Police, other public institutions, financial institutions, and open sources. The Commission assesses information it obtains for its relevance and reliability. On February 1st of this year, the Commission addressed a round of questions to Judge Munteanu and requested answers to these questions by February 8th. Judge Munteanu provided answers and submitted several documents that day. On April 12th, 2024, the Commission asked Judge Munteanu to clarify several uncertainties found in the evaluation procedure and to provide answers to these questions by April 19th. He provided answers to the second round of questions and submitted several documents on April 19th. On May 15th, the Commission asked Judge Munteanu to clarify some uncertainties found during the evaluation process and to provide answers to these questions by May 20th. He provided answers and submitted additional documents by the deadline. On May 31st, 2024, we notified the judge that the Commission, in its investigation, had identified some areas of doubt about his compliance with the ethical and financial criteria. We also invited him to attend today's hearing. On June 3rd, 2024, Judge Munteanu submitted a request to the Commission to hold the hearing in closed session. The Commission informed the judge on June 6th that it had rejected his request and provided reasons for its decision. On June 5th, the judge requested access to the materials related to his evaluation process He received the requested materials on June 7th. Judge, let me begin by asking if you have at this time any corrections or additions you wish to provide to the answers you've previously given to the Commission in its request for information.
I would like to inform the Commission that I don't have any other evidence to present. There are some disagreements regarding the assessments of the Commission that I mentioned in round 2 and round 3 of questions.
All right, we'll have an opportunity to discuss some of those issues further, but first let me ask, are the answers that you provided in the ethics questionnaire that you returned on September 1st, 2023, are those still accurate as of today?
The information that I sent at the beginning of September is still valid. Also, presently, the situation has changed a bit. Recently, the Supreme Court of Justice has issued a final decision on the case submitted based on Law 14, I think 55, on the damage regarding holding a person liable, and it changed the decision of the Court of Appeal from Chisinau, and I was given moral damage because I was illegally held criminally liable. Also, I was led to know that my action has passed the filter for the ECHR, given the decisions that I challenged as illegal at the Supreme Court of Justice. The initial case was rejected, then I went to the ECHR, and now we are in the process of negotiation with the governmental agent regarding the case submitted to the European Court. So these are two issues that were not included in the answers offered to the Commission in September last year.
Well, thank you for the updates on those cases. The members of the Commission will now ask some additional questions. We will try to keep our questions short and to the point. We ask that your answers be short and to the point as well. Commission member Yuri Gatskin will start the questions.
Good morning, Mr. Munteanu. According to the notice regarding the public hearing, we have identified different doubts regarding some differences between the incomes and expenses. According to the notice, you can see that the Commission has identified 8 years where there is a difference between expenses and incomes of approximately 1,082,000. I will also ask some questions regarding the doubts regarding the incorrect declarations for NIA, regarding some savings in cash, and the fact that loan from an individual was not declared. Also regarding some debts taken over from your parents. The first question is about the difference between the incomes and expenses for 2011. This is an important year, which is the starting point for your assessment. This is why I would like to ask you to confirm or to comment on the difference of minus 12,498 lei, which is in the table for 2011. Also, please confirm whether you agree with the amount of the savings that you had at the end of 2010, beginning of 2011, for your family together with your parents.
Da, la rubrica în cauză, într-adevăr,
Yes, for this, indeed,
luat cunoștință de materialele
I
prezentate
have
de
read the
Comisie.
materials presented by the Commission.
Când am venit
Initially,
cu
when
răspunsurile la runda
I
trei de
offered
întrebări,
the answers to the third round of
nu
questions,
dispuneam de careva înscrisuri
I did not
vis-a-vis
have
de cheltuieli
any
pentru
documents
apartament,
regarding the expenses for the apartment
nu se păstrau cu celelalte
because
înscrisuri
they
și
were not kept together with the
ulterior,
other
când am
documents.
primit
And
informația pe data de
later,
6
when I
iulie,
received the information on the 7th of July from the Commission, I checked and I found these documents. As I mentioned in the answers to the Commission in 2015, I moved from my parents and I started living in the apartment where I currently live. Therefore, the difference of minus 12,498 lei, which was noticed by the Commission through these calculations, is in line with the calculations we made. At the same time, as mentioned in the answers to the third round of questions, these expenses, well, I don't agree with them, given the fact that the CEP that was used, based on the CEP used by the Commission, I answered this question because the difference in the amounts was compensated by the support I received from my parents and my parents-in-law in food items or other items, and because we had less expenses because we were living together with our parents, so we had a shared household. So these are the arguments for the expenses and this difference for 2011. I confirmed that in the answers for the third round, I did not have the information, and this is why I had a different opinion when answering the questions. Afterwards, I received the originals that they had. There are such documents, and the Commission confirmed that they have seen this. Can you tell us about the savings in cash declared at the end of 98,000? These are the savings for you and your parents. The ones for the end of the year are just for myself and my wife. These are first from the money received at the wedding, because we were married on the 10th month of 2010. And this, I had some savings from the salary because I was not married. I was living with my parents. I had minimum expenses. So I'm not saying that my parents didn't have their own expenses. So I don't deny that they might have had their own savings. This is because the Commission established for 2010, according to the documents presented by the Housing Construction Cooperative, you and your parents paid for your apartment approximately 40,000 euro. This is where the question arises from. Did you still have some savings? These 98,000 were besides these payments. Yes, this is what we had at the end of the year. Could you tell us from what sources did you pay the 40,000 euro in 2010? From the savings from my salaries and from my parents, inclusively from the 90s. Basically, my parents did not have expenses, and everything that they had left financially was converted in foreign currency, because they wanted to purchase a real estate property for myself to help me. And I had the same objective, so I saved money for this purpose. These 40,000 euro that were paid for you. So one source would be the savings from your parents and your own savings. Yes. inclusively. Well, when I was a student, I would use I had some unofficial work which is not reflected in any bookkeeping documents. And if you remember, in the 90s, the currency was less expensive than afterwards. This is why sometimes I could buy a dollar for 3 lei or such amounts. The last question on this year. You mentioned that you received these documents confirming the payment for 50,000 lei for the apartment for that year. I received them from the commission in the materials, and I confirmed in the CCL with, and then I went to my parents because they were separate from the other documents that I initially presented to the commission. Indeed, we had 4 invoices for the total amount of 56,230 lei. Regarding 2012, the Commission identified some doubts because there's a difference. In that year, you, together with your parents, had total incomes of 238,000, and the expenses were 488,000. The difference is 250,000. What are the sources for paying for the apartment? Because this difference of 250,000 are based on the payments for the apartment. Correct. As I informed the Commission and I presented in the first and second rounds of questions, this amount, just like the apartment, belonged and still belongs to my parents. The source of money, as mentioned, was the money that my parents borrowed from my sister Paladi Rodica, because, and then we have 2016 and 2019. They borrowed this money from my aunt, so these questions will appear later. So I don't think these are my expenses. As I informed the Commission in 2012, since I already had the contractual relationships with Supersonic Ltd, I agreed with my parents to have the sales agreement on my name, or the purchase agreement on my name, because they would not need to go to the bank and so on. After we paid for the property, I donated it to my parents. I did not want to hide something or to be unfair to the state. In 2019, I was de jure the owner, but actually in the documents the parents are the owners. So the expenses are the expenses of my parents, and they came from the loans from my sister and then from my father's sister, my aunt. Regarding the money, these were borrowed from their own incomes. They worked in Italy. I presented the official documents that these persons were legally in Italy. I presented the accountancy documents, and I presented the declaration in their own name regarding the accuracy of the information. I cannot offer receipts because among the members of the family, unlike maybe other families, we don't write this kind of receipts or contracts. This is why I don't have any other additional receipts. Could you confirm for 2012 what was the amount of the credits or loans from your relatives? Let me open the documents.
Eu am prezentat informația în cauză
So,
la
I offered this
întrebarea a
information in the fifth question.
cincea. Nu, la cincea zice că cu apartamentul.
Well, this is regarding the apartment.
La întrebarea a șasea din rubrica din
Question
runda a doua de întrebări,
6 from the second
anume de
round
la
of
sora
questions.
mea, în total,
So from my
am împrumutat
sister,
părinții 17.450
my parents borrowed
euro, iar pe la sora domnului
70,450
euro.
and from my aunt 70,000 euro
2012, da?
in 2012.
Primele
Yes,
cheltuieli au fost
the
în
first expenses were
2012,
in
ulterior
2012,
au fost
then
deja în 2016,
in 2016
deci ultima sumă.
and 2019 the last amount.
O parte din împrumutul dat a fost
And part of
folosit pentru
this
plata
loan was used for this apartment of 132 square meters.
De 17.450,
Both of these
diferite rate și plăți.
loans of 70,450 and 70,000 in different installments, these were for the apartments. Yes, they were for the apartment.
referitor la anul 2015.
Regarding 2015,
A identificat
the Commission also identified
the
incomes of 246,000 and expenses of approximately 488. The difference would be 242,000.
În acest an, dumneavoastră ați avut
In that year,
cheltuieli atât pentru
you had
plata
expenses
apartamentului,
for the apartment of approximately 106,000 lei, and also for purchasing a Honda inside
valoare de 4.000 lei.
car of 104,000
Puteți, vă
lei.
rog, să ne comunicați care ar fi fost
Could you
sursele
tell us
intervenției
what are
acestei
the
expense?
sources for the funds related to these expenses? Yes, I'll explain.
Comisiei la acest capitol
The-
nu sunt în tot de acord.
I don't fully agree with the conclusions of the Commission on this, because if we speak about the Honda Insight car, I think that it was assessed without grounds, while the purchasing price was set as the customs clearance price. In the contract, we only had the sum of 50,000 lei, not the amount of 104,000 lei that was mentioned by the Commission as the
M-a informat Comisia,
equal to the customs clearance sum. No regulatory document mentions that it is mandatory to sell a car at the level of the customs clearance price. And since good can be donated without proceeds, we cannot say that the person is forced to sell it for a certain amount. According to the information from the Commission, inclusive from the Public Service Agency, we have this contract that was registered with them for 50,000 lei. And I also had presented the declaration from the previous owner in this regard. And I consider that increasing its value by 54,662 lei is without grounds, and this is one of my objections. Also, the Commission did not accept the information presented by myself
împrumutul sau
regarding the loan or the donation from my parents of 4,500 euro, which was converted by the Commission in 94,050 lei, which is under expenses, but actually these were incomes. I don't agree with the conclusion of the Commission stating that my parents did not have sources for these funds that they donated to me. because they only referred to the last 4 years before 2015. Because as mentioned previously, my parents did have savings in money from the beginning of the 90s, when the Soviet regime collapsed, and my parents still had money on these bank cards that were converted in lei. This is what they converted that money in foreign currency. I would like to refer to the information that the Commission presented for today's hearing, where some fiscal data or tax data was presented related to my parents' incomes for different years, stating that the tax authorities mentioned zero. My parents worked and had incomes. If the institution did not pass on this information, this does not mean that they did not have any funds. I would like to mention that even after retiring, my parents, besides the official work, had also unofficial work. My father used to work as a guardian for certain parkings. I do not exclude the possibility for my parents to have borrowed this money. I did not have the moral right to ask about these incomes. This is where this difference of 94,050 lei comes from. I consider this as incomes, not expenses. And this was invested in repair works. And I don't agree with the difference of 54,662 lei because the value of the car was overestimated by the Commission. Just like in the previous year, I had, according to my calculations, I have a positive balance of 40,000 lei. Where does it come from? If we move these amounts from expenses to incomes, which ones? The car. So if from 100,000 lei we deduct 50,000, and the other 94,000 we move them to incomes, because I said it was a donation that you used for repair works, because they came in and went out. Well, they are like an investment. If we take your calculations into account, this would be 150,000 lei, but this does not cover 100,000 lei from this difference of 250. 242 minus 50 and minus 94. Therefore, there's still a difference of 100,000 lei. Then, according to CEP, partially, this could be an argument. Other arguments I don't have. Regarding the donation of 94,000 from your parents that you mentioned, if we take a step back to the first question, you mentioned that your parents spent part of the savings in 2010 for the apartment. Therefore, in 2012, they borrowed some money from relatives. This would mean that they did not have a high amount of savings. But in 2015, they gave you this donation. Was this from the loans mentioned? I do not deny this, but I explained previously, when we started to invest in my apartment between 2008 and 2010, my parents had enough money And I did also, so that we could cover the expenses for purchasing and for repairing the apartment. Later, given some difficulties of the administrator of Supersonic, the company is in insolvency, the amount for the apartment increased. Therefore, the amount that my parents could invest in their apartment was less. This does not mean that they invested all money. They had some reserves, but they were aware that this would not be enough to cover the expenses for purchasing the property. Therefore, they took a loan. We should also take into account the fact that besides the money borrowed, they had their own incomes that partially covered the consumption expenditures, and they could have some financial sources that they could invest or donate. This also happened in the following period. We were not limited to those loans because they had incomes inclusive from the pensions.
Comisia a considerat
The Commission looked at these donations of 94,000 as suspicious, also because you failed to mention this amount in your declaration of asset and personal interest for 2015.
puteți să-mi explicați de ce
Could you explain us why did you not do this?
Consider că a fost o omisiune
I
din
believe
partea mea
I
sau
omitted this fact,
pur și simplu
or
nu
I
am ținut
just
cont că ele au fost
did not take into account that
investite imediat
these
în
were
reparații.
this money was immediately
Și am
invested
scăpat din
in
vedere
the repair works, so I just overlooked it.
că există un asemenea.
Referitor la achiziționarea automobilului,
No, talking about the procurement of the car, what was the reasoning for the former owner to sell you this car for a lower price than the market value or the import value? As I also explained in the second chapter or section more thoroughly, this car was a hybrid model. It was purchased at a lower price than the clearance price, like the car markets do. But the custom officers, they require some template price for different models deriving from the capacity of the engine of the car. And I also mentioned that the car was not well functioning because the engine of that car already had some issues and the batteries were already used, discharged. The Commission asked me to show information on the chassis of the car, but the interior, the inside of the car was in a bad situation. And myself and my wife, we did not have, before that moment, the possibility to own some transportation means, so we bought it to learn driving using a more or less bad car, to start to learn driving. And moreover, with that person that sold to us the car, we are in good, more friendly relationships. We had a common godparent, and this difference of 1,000 euro was not relevant, I suppose, because they wanted to give the car for spare parts, maybe for the same price. And that's why we agreed that this would be beneficial for us and for them to have such an amount, and they did not insist on receiving a higher amount. And did you cover some repair works? No, I informed the Commission about this. No, we just used the car as it was at the maximum possibility, and later on we sold it for even a lower price because we do not see a reason to invest in that car. It was with a lot of deficiencies, and we made even less functioning. And the previous person, the person that bought it, invested in the batteries, repair for the engines, and repair work for the chassis because there were some issues with the doors and something else. You did not invest in the car, no.
Referitor la anul 2016.
Now let's talk about 2016. The Commission has identified that your incomes together with your parents amounted to about 188,921 lei, and the expenses amounted to about 475,000. Therefore, we have a difference between the expenses and incomes of about 286,000 lei. The highest expenses during that year were incurred for paying the apartment, amounting of 132 square meters, the amount of 272,000 lei that you paid. And again, this would be the basis for this difference between the incomes and expenses. So your justification for this is that the money also came from your relatives. Yes, you understood it correctly. This is identical with the previous situation, and the documents proving that are the same. So we did not agree on nothing else. You did not contribute to nothing else. But was the apartment at that moment in repair works? No, even now it is not in repair works. We can see it. We have the initial version of the apartment without any adjustments. For 2017, the Commission has identified a small gap of around 3,900 lei, and for 2018 the difference would amount to 186,000 lei, while the incomes are 121,000 and expenses amount to 308,000 lei. The highest expenses for that year were for the purchasing of the car Lexus CT200. Yes, you're right. As I mentioned in the second round of questions and later on in the third round of questions, this respective car belonged to the husband of my niece. We had a previous contract with him. That's why I spent for this car only 10,000 lei that I actually indicated, and it is included in the contract. And according to the information I offered to the Commission, we have agreed on a possibility to repay or reimburse the payment for this car during that time. In 2019, when I was reaccepted or reinstated in the position, the money from I had some money from the selling of real estate property. We agreed that that car was too small for us, so we sold it, and the profit from that car that we got was given to my niece's husband. I contributed with this 10,000 lei amount. The first was taken as a prepayment, with the later possibility to pay the rest of the amount. So I just got back my money, and this information was accepted by the Commission as incomes for 2019. But I also want to mention about the Honda car. The Commission actually interpreted the information in a certain way. So the car was accepted for being paid for 10,000, but it was not accepted the procurement of it for 10,000, or did not agree with the price basically. If the Commissions believed that the prices were diminished, then why did they accept the price indicated? So you say that the car was sold for 500 euro. So my income, my benefit was only of 10,000 lei. And when I bought it, it was a prepayment, and when I sold it, it was the benefit. So I said that the first car, we use it at maximum because we learned to drive, both myself and my wife. Because at that moment we were students in driver school. So you imagine that we, as first users, we used it at all, and we had a lot of accidents. Well, that car was functioning, but it needed investments. The batteries were changed before that, and the engine had issues with the oil for the engine. So the intervention would have costed us more than to buy another car. The Lexus was from 2013 and Honda from 2009, but the Lexus needed investments while Honda not. So I did not. So we didn't have a possibility to buy later a car which was newer. We had later a possibility to buy a new car than to invest in the former one. When we talk about 2019, the difference between incomes and expenses is about 76,000 lei. The incomes we calculated was about 900,000 lei, and expenses 976,000. That year you have recovered those 10,000 euro for the car you bought. You have sold the flat for 548,000 lei. You had already the salaries of yourself and your wife. In that year, the only difference that I identified relates also to the apartment of 130 square meters. The amount of 67,700 lei, which were made expenses in the same circumstances for 2012 and 2016, and you already asked questions about that. So the source is the same loans from my father's sister. And the rest confirmed that there is a real price for the car of 509,000 lei. 409,000 lei. And its savings were about 326,000. Yes. I would explain that when I was reinstated in position in 2019, after I was suspended from my position, the accounting service from Botanica Court reimbursed me the salaries for the whole period when I missed work. But when they did not have money on the account for that purpose, some part of this was paid to me at the end of 2019 and the other part in January 2020. But in the documents, as far as I remember, this was included as a lump sum to have made the transfer. And when we talk about this more than 300,000 lei, I indicated that the checks were also made by the anti-money laundering service. And in 2020, you also had a difference between incomes and expenses of about 22,000 lei. And your justification is the same? Yes, the difference is also due. What I say the same thing, that the CEP could not with certainty prove that I did not get some gifts for my some anniversaries or other holidays or for my wife, but I could not indicate the real amount in order to not mislead the Commission in this regard. We will next focus on some questions related to the loan you gave to a company. According to the materials that you have also in front of you,
Comisia a primit
The Commission received some information related to a transaction of loan that you offered in 2020 to Med Group Company,
în sumă de
Med Group
aproximativ
Company,
30.000
amounting to
de euro,
about 35,000 euro.
pe care ați documentat
And you
notarial.
have documented this with a public notary.
Totodată acest împrumut
And at the same time, this loan that was officialized, you failed to indicate it in the declaration of assets and personal interest for the year of 2020. Could you tell us why did you fail to indicate this loan? Yes, I confirm
Regret că
this.
nu am
I
făcut
am
această
really
mențiune.
sorry I did
Toate
not
acestea menționează
mention this.
Suma
But at the same time, I want to
banii care au
say
servit la
that the
acest
money
împrumut au
used
fost
for this
declarați de
loan
către
were
mine ca
declared by
venituri
myself as
salariale
incomes
din
from the
vânzarea
salary
imobilului
and
la
incomes
începutul
coming from the
Respectiv, în
alienation or
declarația
selling
de
of
venit,
the
suma
real
cauză
estate
a
property
fost
at the end of that year.
declarată la
So this
venituri
amount was
salariale,
indicated
venituri
in the
din
section
vânzări și
incomes from salaries,
omis
from
din vedere
sales,
reieșind din formular
but I omitted this
rubrica corespunzătoare
because
din
the wording in
declarație
that
că ar
section in
urma
the
să
declaration
declar
said
suma
that
dată
this
ca
was
împrumut,
to be
ori
amount was to be
am
declared
perceput
as a
doar că urmează
loan,
să
or
declar
I perceived it
sumele
so,
pe care eu le
but
primesc de la terțele persoane
because
și
I
care
had to,
le fac. Recunosc
I understood
că
that I
a fost
had to
o
declare
mențiune
only the amounts that I
nu
received from that person, from some persons, not the ones that I gave as loans. So the source of these funds would be the selling of the apartment, yes, some from the apartment and the other part coming from my salary. And given that at the end of 2019, in December, I was also working and I had the salary in parallel, this allowed me to exchange this in currency and to keep this amount. I confirm and admit this action.
Referitor la
Now let's talk about the savings you had in cash at the end of 2020.
conform datelor Comisiei,
According to the
dumneavoastră
data you
spuneați
offered to the
că în grad de
Commission,
500
you
de
had
lei
the savings in cash about
și
500,000 lei and around 5,000 euro.
sursa acestor mijloace
The
fiind,
source of these funds
banii restituiți
being
pentru
evoked
perioada
as the money that were reimbursed for the period you were suspended from position. So at the end of 2019, these were transferred for the 2020 and they were collected, were confirmed the final amount. So at the end of 2020, I did not have this cash because this was offered as loan to the company you mentioned.
că împrumutul a avut loc până
So
la
the loan you offered before submitting the declaration for 2020, I offered the loan in May 2020. But as of 31st of March, when you submitted the declaration, the annual declaration, did you have these funds available in cash? In March 2019 or in March 2020? 2020. Well, it's correct. I said that I indicated this as incomes from salary, but I omitted to include them in that section. So in 2021, I already failed to indicate the contract with Med Group. I changed a little bit the word. But as of 31st of March 2020, you did not have this amount available. I did have them in cash. I said I had them and exchanged them in currency. In 2020, I had them in cash, and in 2020, in May, after 2 months, I gave them as a loan, and I got them back in 2021. But in the declaration of assets and personal interest, you failed to mention this. Yes, I admit I failed to mention this element, and I explained you why. Yes, thank you.
aceeași întrebare ce ține de
Same question related to the loan
doamna Palade.
you took from Madame Palade.
Să nu fiu de acord cu aprecierile comisiei.
I tend to disagree with the appreciation of the Commission in that sense. As I said previously, this was not a loan. This was the money from sales that I kept, I stored. I was not using them as I was willing to. So it was not a loan. So it was mostly a source of funds that you had at home. So my sister asked me to keep this money for her. And as I also explained in the second round of questions, this was part of the money that were given to Med Group with consent of my sister. I do not take it as a loan in the for the benefit of my family. So to conclude on the whole situation, starting from 2012 till the end of 2022, the loan your parents took, amounting to about 35,000 euro till the end of 2022. How much of this loan was reimbursed? As I explained, from this amount, I have repaid to my aunt, on behalf of my parents, the amount of 17,000 euro from the money that Med Group repaid me. This would be almost $20,000. So I did this in 2021 when I was reimbursed the money according to the loan contract signed with MG Group. This would amount about 17,000 euro. So half of the loan your parents took in 2012. And as I also informed the Commission, my parents have a debt to my sister of 17,400 euro. And they agreed that this amount they will repay it upon request. So currently they have their pension and some other incomes, and they are using this to collect this amount, and when requested they will reimburse this to my sister. Thank you. No other questions? Maybe my colleagues will have some? Mr. Munteanu, you mentioned about several loans offered from your sister or from your aunt, either to you or indirectly to your parents. You mentioned that you did not have or offer any receipt. You have not documented these loans. I want you to clarify, to mention which of these loans were offered in cash and which were offered by transfer or any other way. So these amounts, as far as I know, were only offered in cash. And I told you why. Because our family is not an adept of keeping money in the banks after they lost a lot of money when the Soviet regime collapsed. And this conclusion became stronger during the 2019 with the COVID period, when the banks were not working, when they did not have cash, and also the war in Ukraine proved us that we need to store money in cash for a potential risk of needing to leave the country if the war comes by. God help us, will this not happen?
Any other questions? Judge Munteanu, it appears that the Commission has no further questions. Would you like to make a statement before we conclude the hearing? Is there anything else you'd like to tell us?
I
would like to thank the Commission for the time they offered to me and for the effort put by the Secretariat in order to elucidate all the circumstances. And I hope I will get a positive answer from you. Thank you.
We have come to the end of today's hearing. Judge Munteanu, thank you for your submissions and your answers to the Commission's questions. After the hearing, the Commission will approve an evaluation decision stating its conclusion whether the subject meets the criteria for ethical and financial integrity under Law Number 65. The Commission will strive to complete its evaluation report and announce its conclusion as soon as possible. It generally seeks to do so within a month after a candidate's public hearing. This hearing is now closed. Good day to everyone.
O zi bună, la revedere!
Have a good day.